Hi, I'm here with Holly Rigby, an organiser from the Abolish Eton campaign at the Radical Independence Conference. Holly, it was great to hear your speech earlier. I just wanted to ask you, first of all, a wee bit about your experiences in the anti-private school campaign in England and what you learned from that and what might be useful for those of us in Scotland that want to have a similar campaign.
Yeah, well, firstly to say, obviously, hopefully we support the kind of abolition of private schools in Scotland as well. And I think what made it a particularly unique campaign is that actually our campaign is run by teachers. So I'm a state school teacher in England. I work in one of the most deprived boroughs in London. And I do think having the voices of state school teachers who really feel the depth of inequality between private schools and state schools is really important because, it does feel fundamentally unjust that 300% more is spent on children at Eton than on state schools like mine. So I think trying to work with teachers and with families and with communities is a really, really important way of kind of getting that message out there.
Yeah. And I mean, I know personally in Edinburgh where I grew up, 1 in 4 people go to a private school. So you do often kind of get people getting quite defensive because they've been sent to a private school or, their family. And I wonder kind of how you can kind of make people see that it's not about them, it's about something bigger than them. And I don't know whether you've been able to engage people that do have that experience of going to private schools or working for private schools and then kind of come on side. Does that happen much?
Well, I mean, what we say is that, people don't choose where their parents send them to school. So, we would never kind of blame somebody for going to a private school, although we would obviously want people, if they went to private school, to support the fact that they would be integrated. So that's the first thing to say. But the second thing to say is we also don't even blame parents for sending their children to private schools either, just because we understand, in a deeply unequal society, parents are trying to make the best choices that they can. And so it's not about individual choices that is going to change the system, it's about changing government level policy to kind of equal out funding and resources between the two sectors. And certainly as a teacher, and I'm in a trade union that has private school teachers and state school teachers, we obviously don't blame any teachers because we know that lots of teachers often find better paying conditions in the private sector. And so what we say is, we want to improve and transform the state sector as well to kind of level everybody up, not to bring private school teachers down, basically. There's lots of people who coming out now who have been privately educated who have come out and support our campaign, and actually that goes the same for any politicians. If a politician was privately educated, okay, but we think the most important thing is, well, what will you do in government, basically. So
So just finally, a bit about kind of the state of Labour and Labour in Scotland. It was really, I think there was important points made both by yourself and also Ross Greer saying, Labour voters are obviously key to the independence movement, and with quite a kind of different leadership in England with Jeremy Corbyn and Scotland. How do you think that the Labour movement, the Corbyn movement, and can support the independence campaign, and how do you think that those relationships could go through?
Yeah. Well, listen, I think that Corbyn and McDonnell have come out and said that they support a second independence referendum if there's a majority for one in Holyrood, which, I mean, obviously there will be given the sort of dominance of the SNP. So I think that's really important that certainly the Labour leadership has kind of made that decision to support Scotland's right to choose. Now, I would go beyond that, obviously, and I think that also we should be saying that we support Scottish self-determination and an independent Scotland. But what I do think is by having the referendum and by keeping it open, you allow people to campaign on both sides depending on, however they feel about Scottish independence. Now, Scottish Labour has to catch up. They are still completely tone deaf to what's happened to independence. They still treat Scottish independence as this reactionary nationalist thing rather than a kind of historic opportunity to transform Scotland. And I think lots of pressure needs to be continued to be put on them from the grassroots, particularly from Labour Party members in Scotland who also support independence. They can push that leadership to say, well, actually, this is what we want to happen. And I think that that's important because, Scottish Labour has been despised, I think, basically in Scotland for a very long time, and understandably, because it's been a sort of horrible crucible of sort of new, particularly Blairite New Labourists. So, I think if Scottish Labour's got any chance of winning in Scotland again, I think it has to take the question of independence much more seriously and actually listen to people in Scotland.